Peace and love, everyone. This is Sister Iman with another live stream, and I will continue to read NESARA Book 1 by David E. Robinson. The last stream that I read was pages 63 through 82, and I will read page 83 through 110. So it is NESARA Book 1 by David E. Robinson. So I'm going to start with page 83. Government. Future governments will not consist of politicians who have their own agenda or the agenda of those businesses financing them, but rather scientists, researchers, and administrators, professionals in their field, which will bring stability and accountability back to government. Representatives will be chosen for their wisdom, experience, and spiritual understanding. Those with ulterior motives will be known, and there will be no place for them in the administrative organizations. Political parties will be a thing of the past. Representatives will present the people rather than the party. Did you know that politicians must sign an agreement to vote as the party dictates rather than the people they represent? This was confirmed in a court of law in Alberta, Canada, many years ago, when an individual was elected on his promise to oppose the proposed new GST sales tax. But when we got to Ottawa, he voted in favor of it. The people took him to court, and they all lost. And they lost. A signed piece of paper always takes precedence over verbal promises when it comes to a court of law. The very word politician has a criminal ring to it these days. Few voice their own opinions. It is said that members of the U.S. House of Congress each receive $2 million to support one group in Congress. British Prime Minister Tony Blair is said to have received personally $6 billion to side with President Bush in his war against Iraq. It has always been said that monkey talks. The Bush administration bribed Turkey and other countries to get their support in the UN for invading Iraq, and also threatened to withdraw foreign aid and impose other penalties if they didn't. The 26 billion bribe failed to persuade the Turkish parliament. So, how does a government keep its people from rebelling? Bear in mind the 4 pillars of control: fear, guilt, ignorance, and poverty. The church is the principal tool as it covers all 4: fear, fear of God rather than God's love and care for all mankind; guilt, born into sin; ignorance, suppression and knowledge, and the promotion of disinformation; poverty, teething, and many other demands for monies to support the activities of the church. All the false controls on the planet Earth originated from a higher race, the gods, who kept their knowledge to themselves and maintained the human races as their slaves. They were actually five races, distinguished still today by their color. The Illuminati, those with knowledge, diversified into several fields, each with complete control over the people. Royalty was one branch, the church was another, and the international bankers were probably the most active. The latter knew, as Mayor Rothschild once stated publicly, that if you control the purse strings of a nation, it does not matter which politicians or parties are in power. Money is their principal tool combined with interest. Money itself has no value. Banks are the only institutions which do not practice double entry bookkeeping, as there is no other side to take into account. Money is manufactured from nothing, and most of it today is electronic, and it is constantly multiplied by unpayable interest, quite often compound interest and fractional reserve expansion. Mind control. The church keep you in slavery by inviting you to be. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. The church keeps you in slavery by inviting you to become saved. Wars are advanced for business reasons by calling the soldiers peacekeepers. When you own the munitions factories, how else do you get customers? The government has used the terrorist threats for its own ends, create fear, and persuade the people to ask for more government control. The bankers steal your money by instituting the income tax to finance the programs of your government, who receive not a penny from it. It is paid to the international banking families through the Federal Reserve Bank. Politics has always been a hotbed of corruption, and it takes a strong person not to be tempted by the easy money to be made. In the future, you will not have representatives who have an outside interest that clashes with their duty to their people. A different system of selection and qualification will have to be introduced. This will not be as difficult as it may sound, as in the future people will be known for their honesty and spirituality. The model of all future political systems will be established in the United States, and it will reflect the spiritual aspirations of the people. I talk here of universal laws that must be applied in the relationship between those ruling and the governed. People will have a far greater say in matters affecting them. Once it can be seen that those appointed to act on your behalf are the white are the right people and can be trusted, life will quickly move on. People all over the world are going to see the same changes within their ruling parties. If need be, whole governments will be removed and control turned over to those who have the real interests of the people at heart. One of the most noticeable changes will be in that area of decision making. Gone will be the political infighting that has often prevented desirable changes from being passed. A clear mandate will be given in matters of urgency will not be delayed. With new leaders, it will soon be seen that they are true representatives of the people. Behind them will be a team of advisors that will be conversant with the plan that will carry humanity forward. Knowledge will be shared with all, and there will be no gain for any individual to personally profit from it. In fact, there will be a totally different outlook in such matters, and working for the good of all will be the main criterion. This is based upon spiritual concepts that will lift humanity to a new level of awareness. By then, your media outlets will have been reestablished, and your news will be true and reliable, and there will be no need for censorship, as there will be nothing to hide from you. What you see or hear in one part of the world will go to one humanity worldwide. Health. There is enough wealth in the world to provide free health care. The caregivers, however, will change. The monopoly of the pharmaceutical companies will be broken, and their products will have to be proven effective and without side effects before they can be distributed to doctors, hospitals, and the general public. According to medical journals, less than 30% of pharmaceutical products receive any real testing at all before they are launched on a unsuspecting public. Natural products will take their place, resulting soon in a reduction of the requirement for hospital beds or allowing full use of current facilities, with the emphasis on preventive medicine. Illness will drop drastically. Medical doctors will be obligated to take courses in health, merely an option in medical school, if one can believe that. They must return to being the physician of old, true doctors of health, rather than doctors of medicine. Laboratories will produce natural remedies which have long been suppressed. The role of nurses in hospitals will be fully recognized, and they will play a minor role in returning patients to full health. Many of those displaced over the years will return to their profession. Practitioners of alternative or complementary medicine will receive recognition for their expertise and ability to treat imbalances in the physical body. Prevention rather than cure will be the new byword in healthcare. Science. Under constitutional law, inventors of new energy devices will be able to safely make their devices available publicly. Alternative medical therapies and technologies can also be made available without worry of attacks by FDA agents or other government interference. What a tremendous benefit to the human race. One method that the Illuminati used to hamper the progress of science was to introduce systems and theories which prevented scientifically useful measurements being made. The introduction of the metric system was one such tool. It prevents advanced scientific calculations from being made accurately. Despite its seeming difficulty and lack of reason, the so called imperial system of weights and measures is much more accurate. We will therefore change back to using pounds rather than kilograms. Although it will not be compulsory. Some branches of industry might want to retain the metric system because of their business dealings with other countries which only use the metric system, at least for the moment. Some changes were only nominal. So changing back to a 2x4 in the lumber industry would not be difficult. In making this change, it will be lawful to use volumetric measure only for liquids and gases. Apples and pears, for instance, will no longer be sold by the liter as is done in some quarters today. This would seem to be a common sense rule. Sports. Emphasis on amateur sports for the sake of exercise rather than competition will be greatly increased and significantly more funding made available for prospective Olympic and other athletes, as well as for school and university sports facilities. The funding will cover travel costs to international events. Astronomical payments made today to players in competitive sports will be history. Back to the $1 entrance fee to the ball game. And likewise, in other countries, the admission fee to popular sports will be reduced in similar fashion. Investment in gambling will disappear from the sports fields. And professional players will be paid at a level more appropriate to the benefit they bring to the public. After the initial shock, the games will become more enjoyable to all. In some sports, particularly ice hockey, the audience has been attracted more by the on-field violence than the excellence to play itself. And the games have been orchestrated that way. Soccer hooligans is a popular term in Europe, especially as violence, not on the field, but amongst the spectators, has been a well-known aspect of the game for many years. It was noticeable, however, that the violence took place in games held fairly too close to the sea. In Britain, of course, this meant all games, and it was soon termed the English disease. Nobody thought, however, of mind control. Russian submarines patrolled the North Sea, the English Channel, and the Eastern Atlantic, and being mind control. Mind control, okay, mind controlling frequencies to areas where these games were held. I noticed this first when violence occurred in games held in Germany close to the coast, but not in southern Germany, which was far from any open sea. It soon became obvious what was going on. The European International Championship, Euro 2008, held in June of 2008 in Austria and Switzerland, was not only far from the sea, but there was a distant change in attitude amongst fans. There was not a single act of violence, quite extraordinary, and there were even incidents of quite opposite emotions. The Dutch team took out a full page ad in a local Barn newspaper thanking the people of Barn in Switzerland for their hospitality. Was this really soccer? Hopefully, an indication of the many positive changes that are taking place worldwide as we start to welcome in this golden age. Technology. Science will take on a new meaning as new technologies are released, radically changing the way we do things. Oil and gas will no longer be used, or at least drastically reduced. Plastic are still useful. Oil tankers will become redundant. Redundant. Gas lines will no longer be required. Power lines will disappear. No more blemishes on the countryside. Nuclear power will be dropped like a hot potato. Even energies which seem to be the answer will be dropped. Hydrogen, biodiesel, wind power, solar power, cosmic energies are so much simpler, available in the atmosphere around us and free. The use of cosmic energy will be one of the greatest contributions to environmental well-being on this planet. Only renewable, environmentally friendly energies will be used. Transportation, production of non-fossil fuels for propulsion. The transportation industry will enjoy a new lease on life. There will be an initial collapse, of course, but it will be reborn with renewed vigor. Fuel costs, including related taxes, constitute a major portion of the operating costs of air, sea, and land transportation companies. No more bankrupt airlines. Rail will emerge once again as an economical means of transporting bulk and heavy goods, as well as reviving the romantic aspect of travel by rail. Fresh investment would be made in a rail stock and railway stations and railroads in general, and past abandoned lines would be reopened. It has long been treated by government as the Cinderella of the transportation industry, whereas in places like Europe, it is a favorite means of efficient, clean, and comfortable transportation. All special taxes on travel, especially airport and security taxes, which sometimes amount to 30% or more of the cost of travel, would be eliminated. It is not yet quite clear whether the new sales tax on non essential goods and services will be applied to travel. The probability is that it would not. Travel on business would be considered essential. Private travel, well, rest and relaxation is an essential part of the healthy living, so this should also be exempt. The eventual elimination of fossil fuels would contribute greatly to a pollution-free environment on land, in the sea, and in the air. Preparations of the elimination of all pollution in the air transportation are already underway. These are formulations for removing pollution from water using structured water and similar systems. Electron charge cluster technology and anti-gravity devices will form the basis of free energy population systems. Much of this can be read in the Journal of the New Energy, edited by Hal Fox, who company EEMF, Emergent Energies marketing firm, will have a useful head start in this field. His laboratory is recognized as the foremost on the planet in terms of new energy device development. It will be quite a challenge to meet the need for those new energy devices, particularly conversion kits for conventional vehicles tapping into space energies. How many automobiles, trucks, and off the road vehicles are operating worldwide today? How many ships are operating on the high seas and inland waterways? How many jet aircraft and general aircraft are flying worldwide? Such a market is hard to comprehend. When one thinks of all of the traditional industries which will cease to exist, it is easy to see that even more jobs will be created by new industries. Marine operations would especially benefit from the new clean means of propulsion, but it would eliminate much of the need for oil and gas tankers, which will be refurbished for other purpose or scrapped. One of the principal sources for energy would be the atmosphere itself. Going back to the 50s, when Nikola Tesla drove a vehicle around New York City without the use of gasoline, the demand will be so great that each country will be producing their own, helping to negate the loss of jobs in other industries. The military have been using advanced technology for decades against their fellow citizens, but now the tables will be turned and the technology will be put to good use and the military put out to pasture. In the meantime, that will happen to the petroleum industry. We imagine that there will be severe penalties initially for price fixing over the past decades that the price of a liter of gas will go back to 5 cents, a US gallon to 20 cents. The prices I remember in the gas wars of 1971, or the industry would be nationalized and low prices prevail until there was no further need for gas stations. Aware of the dismal future outlook, prices at the gas pump are soaring at the moment to unheard of heights, making hay while the sun shines. There was a great excitement about the hydrogen some years back and the biodiesel more recently, but these were interim measures and will fade. Automobile manufacturers are already producing hybrid vehicles, and deference to the petroleum industry, who have the same controllers. They have not yet made them fully electric, but there are engines waiting in the wings, which will drink in only the atmosphere electron charge coupled devices or hydrogen from the water in the very near future. The electronically powered flying vehicle. Our highways are obsolete. Every year, millions of dollars are wasted on repairing a system that can no longer accommodate the transportation needs of the 21st century. And to make matters worse, our already overburdened highways are bombarded yearly with thousands and thousands of new drivers. Not only does this cause further highway destruction, but it worsens pollution and slows traffic. Maybe worst of all, it increases the likelihood of traffic fatalities. The Langenberg Research Center in Europe, Oregon, has an alternative, the electronically powered flying vehicle. In the meantime, tremendous steps forward have been taken in the introduction of new technologies or the secret ones. This will be the start of a new industrial revolution. Apart from the cleanup of Mother Earth, Pacific interest was shown in building spacecraft for transporting relief supplies and services to underdeveloped countries to relieve famine and poverty. Once this has been done, attention will be turned into transporting people and replacing commercial jet aircraft, especially jumbo jets. This would collapse the airline industry and create an entirely new industry. There have been some rational attempts made and achieved for the replacement of fossil fuels by the use of tidal power, wind power, and solar energy. We applaud these changes. However, it is much more important to use some of the new technology that we shall have available to tap into the non polluting use of the vast energy of space. Space everywhere, on the ground, in the air, under the water, or in space away from Earth. It is going to be an entirely different world without global or industrial cartels. War and weapons of war. The elimination of war worldwide will have far reaching effects. The purpose of the military will change. The monetizations factories, all holdings of the of all holdings of the Illuminati, who have always organized war throughout the planet, will close down or be converted to manufacturing products for more useful purpose. Factories which produce weapons of war or mass destruction will either close down or take part in space program activities as attention is paid more to intergalactic communications, travel, and relationships. The weather. Right now, weather across the world is out of control, or at least contrary to expectations. Many of the severe weather systems in recent years were man created weather wars forecast back in the 80s. This has unbalanced the natural system worldwide. Although intense storms, flooding, fires, and other disasters have been forecast for the future, as well as major changes in climatic conditions, most of that scenario, however, has been changed. The fierce fires in California and other places were man engineered to redirect our attention away from other important events that were occurring. The December 2004 major tsunami in Southwest Asia was partly man engineered, but it is claimed that that will be the last one that man has a hand in. There will be one or two others of a lesser nature as Mother Earth continues to adjust herself. There also there will also prearrange agreement for many to depart this life at this point in time. Update June 2008. For some time, there have been warnings of extreme seismic activity and tsunamis, particularly on the west coast of North America. These have been held back for some time by the celestials or their severity lessened, but sooner or later they will become it, sooner or later they will become a reality. Some of this activity may happen during stasis. There are areas which are and can be protected depending upon the light workers in that area. But those who do not feel inclined to move from their current location may choose to remain there unless and until they receive instructions from within to do otherwise. Some important areas may indeed receive damage, but will receive funding to rebuild and the opportunity to acquire property at a more advantage at an advantage price. Freedom of the press. A detailed history and the extent to which there has been no freedom of the press is given on this webpage. For the benefit primarily of those who for some time have been obvious to this. Controlling all media was an important step in preventing the public from accessing real information and there be maintaining, controlling the public. The same is also true by the education system. The introduction of the internet soon began to create problems for the Illuminati, as there is no control over what is published on the internet. Although there have been several attempts to do so, some partially successful. It was easier to spread the rumor that information found on the internet was false and misleading as it did not come from authoritative sources. Many still hold that opinion. Only when they see it on TV or in the press will they believe it. That goes hand in hand with the belief that the government will take care of me. Yes, not in the way you think they will. Upon the announcement, all this will change. Many in the media cannot wait for this to happen, and many have been leading supporters of NESARA. Some, regrettably, have passed on in the meantime. Whether control over existing media outlets will fail to light workers or whether new channels will be created is not yet known. By either way, the situation will change overnight. It is it is anticipated that there will be celestial involvement here, especially in the announcement itself. Saint Germain and the NESARA Trust. The story of how this change will occur takes us back to Tudor England. There was an enigmatic character by the name of Saint Germain. He learned the secrets of alchemy by studying ancient historic knowledge into the occult. He was literally able to turn lead into gold rocks into diamonds, and later was able to transmute his mortal body into an immortal angle, conquering death itself. With his elixir of life and positive thinking, he never aged at all. It is the activity of our nerves, the flame of our desire, the acid of our fears, which daily consume our organism. He would succeeds. He who succeeds in raising himself above his emotions and suppressing in himself anger and fear of illness is capable of overcoming the attrition of the years and attaining an age at least double that at which men now died of old age. Saint Germain. Comte de Saint Germain was noted for rubbing elbows with the monarchies, many of which commented on his elaborate shoes studded with $40,000 diamonds and pearls. No one knew the source of his income. Then, around 1727, he shared his secret money making techniques with certain Germain bankers in hopes that they would use the money to help humanity. Using his technologies, excuse me, using his techniques, they, along with the monarchies, choose to squander the money for themselves. Even to this day, these bankers have continued to keep this knowledge secret. Eventually, Saint Germain realized the money was never going to be used for benevolent purposes, so he pulled his money out. And in 1729, he pulled it into his own rural trust. At the found at the funding of the trust, it was stipulated that his money will be released in the year 2000. Bank roll programs. Around the turn of the century, the children of robber barons and banksters began to see the error in their parents' evilness and their use of wealth. These 100 children are known as wealthy visionaries. Together, they invested some of their family's money into secret money roll programs to be used for humanitarian purposes. The bankroll programs allow wealthy investors to make insane profits by ripping off the access and sources from third, from third world nations. The profits from these programs are utterly astronomical, as monthly returns can be in excess of $100,000 and $500,000. The name roll programs comes from a method of rolling money over and over in short periods of time. At the end of each cycle, investors then reinvest or roll the principal and interest earned over into the next cycle. In the late 1990s, the bank roll programs finally ceased. Money earned from those bankroll programs became known as the prosperity programs over time. The programs were secretly opened up to small investors so that one could invest as little as $100 at a time. These small amounts were handled by trustees who collected the money and kept records and combined the small investments into the large amount, let's say $1 million, that was required in order to enter a roll. The news of these programs spread by word of mouth, and especially via multi-level marketeers. Thousands of people invested, and great wealth was generated, but little, if anything, was ever paid back to the investors. Trustees such as Clyde Hood and Mike Kaldowski were sent to jail under false charges. Then corruption, greed, and fraud became widespread among the bankers, government, and even some trustees who wanted to steal the money for themselves. Even the Bush family had their hands in the pot using promise software. They could transfer stolen funds without being traced. Many have died because of his wealth, but God has another plan for humanity. The time has now come. The time has now come to release these prosperity funds and the funds from St. Germain's World Trust. This money will be used to buy out all oil corporations, banks, and pharmaceutical cartels, and zero out all debt. 250 years of compound interest has mushroomed the World Trust into a net worth in excess of quadrillion dollars. That is okay. I'm gonna read it again. World Trust into a net worth of excess of $1 quadrillion. That's one with 40 zeros behind it. This is enough money to buy a gold cube the size of the orbit of Saturn. So, astronomical, most people will not believe it. The money from the World Trust will be distributed in the following manner. Level 1, the World Trust under the trusteeship of Master Saint Germain. At his direction, the World Trust can only be activated by payout only 2 times during any given year. Easter and Christmas. At Saint Germain's orders, the World Court activates the funding process. This process continued down through the 4 lower levels of trust to the people. And under certain conditions, the funding windows remains open until the next holiday funding window begins. For example, if the Easter windows is activated, the window can remain open until December 24th, the day before Christmas, at which time it closes. The window remains open only if significant funds are moved to certain designated trusts during a set period of time. If not, the funding window is closed when such deadlines are not met. Level 2, 180 Royal Trust. Under the control of trustees in various sovereign countries. Examples are the French Trust, the Russian Trust, and the Vatican Trust. Level 3, the Family Trust. Under the control of trustees of the world's wealthiest families. Examples, the Braun Famine, Warburg, Morgan, Rothschild, and Rockefeller. Level 4, 250 plus corporate trusts under the control of trustees from powerful companies and corporations. Examples are General Electric, Lockheed, General Motors, Boeing, Carnegie, Ford, Marriott, and AT&T. There are 4 through 5 trustees per trust, which means that approximately 1,200 trustees must sign documents to move money through these trusts. Level 5, the Prosperity Program Trust, which represents the various 70 through 75 bankroll programs, which are under the control of designated program trustees. Again, there are 4 through 5 trustees per trust, or some 350 persons who must sign documents to activate these trusts. Some examples include Berg, Venue, SBC, ITI, Savage, Morgan, Omega, and Freedom. The largest trust is Freedom, and it must be funded first. It is these trusts that hold the wealth from the enlightening robber baron children. Finally released. Finally, the funds will be released to the common man. As the funds pass through each trust, the trustee must use only certain designated safe banks and sign the proper documents with only certain designated banking personnel at those banks. Should this process be activated and then be stalled by deceitful bankers, deceitful trustees, and the deadlines for funding to reach certain trust are not met. The funding window is then closed. This is the problem. Members of the Bush family are blocking the release of these funds. Okay, and I'm going to stop it right here. I will continue to read the NESARA Book 1 by David E. Robinson. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining my live stream. And I will close it out. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. So I will resume reading the NESARA Book 1 at another time. Until next time, peace.